Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, we could tell that you guys were praying for us this weekend because we finally got some rain. We got almost 2 inches of rain this weekend. Now, while that is not enough to solve all of our problems, it was definitely a blessing, and it was really nice to see water falling from the sky.
There was also a nice break from this heat for a couple of days, but it is back in full force. We have, I think, a high of 96 or 97 today, and it is humid.
Yeah, we're actually back under a heat advisory. Today is Monday. We're under a heat advisory until Wednesday night. So it's going to be another hot few days.
Now, after we got all of that rain, Kevin and I realized that if we didn't get out to the garden really quickly, that we were going to have tomatoes bursting and melons bursting. We did have some cracking on the tomatoes, the cantaloupe, and a couple of the watermelons, but we did a giant harvest. All of that is in the kitchen, ready for us to preserve.
So all of that stuff needs to be taken care of. But today, our time and effort needs to be put into the greenhouse, because as we showed you in the last video, our outside garden, our normal garden, it's not doing so well this year. We were able to pick all of that stuff this week, but honestly, that's about all we're going to get out of the garden. We may get 1 or 2 more pickings of things here and there, but nothing like we normally get. But here in Missouri, we have a long growing season, and even longer inside of the greenhouse. So there are things that we can kind of replant. Things that normally we would only do outside or we would only do once, we're going to do those for a second time in the greenhouse this year, and that's what we're working on today.
So the drought is not going to keep us down. We're going to overcome that by relying on our greenhouse.
Right.
So let's go inside and get to work.
Well, despite the heat and the drought, everything in the greenhouse is looking amazing, which is why we want to do even more things in here. Now, the very first thing that we're going to work on today is actually putting up some trellises for some of the plants that we started a few weeks ago. We told you guys that we're having some real trouble with our cucumbers out in the garden. Now, our early spring cucumbers here in the greenhouse did really well, but they're done already for the year. And with the heat that we've been having, we didn't really feel like trying that same variety for a second time. And given how the cucumbers in the garden are doing, we didn't want to try that variety either. Now, standard cucumbers, like we always grow, aren't really a hot weather plant. They kind of like moderate temperatures. In fact, when we lived in Arizona, we never got cucumbers to grow. But there was something that we grew in Arizona in the desert that is similar to a cucumber, but does really well in the hot weather. It's called an Armenian cucumber. Technically, it's not a cucumber, it's a melon, but it looks similar to a cucumber, it grows very similar to a cucumber, and it tastes a lot like a cucumber. So that is what we're going to try in the greenhouse. We planted the seeds I think about 3 weeks ago. They're actually up and doing really well, but it's time to put a trellis up for them. So that's what we're going to start working on today. So when we were considering what kind of trellises we wanted to use in the greenhouse, we thought about a lot of options. We thought about using some old fencing that we had. We thought about using cattle panels like we used out in the garden. But ultimately, we didn't want to have to put T-posts through the ground cover that we have in the greenhouse, because every time you put a hole in the ground cover, you start to get weeds in that spot. So we didn't really want to do that. So instead, we started to look for alternatives. I found online this material here. It comes on a roll, and this is for trellises, and it's actually, I don't know how to explain it, it's almost like a volleyball net type of material, like a fishing net, I guess is the best way to put it. And this is specifically for trellising plants, and it's supposed to hold up really well in the heat and the sun and everything else. And I was able to get a 350-foot roll of this, and it makes a 5-foot tall trellis. Now, we're going to use it actually, instead of rolling out kind of the long way, we're going to hang it from the ceiling in here, and we're going to roll it down, so we'll have a 5-foot wide trellis. So this is what we're going to use for our Armenian cucumbers, and then we're also going to put some of this up for our Malabar spinach. So this is the first time we're doing this. But I have a pretty good plan. I think we're going to do it very similar to the way we did the strings for our tomatoes, kind of hang it off the rafters of the greenhouse, and I think it's going to work really well.
Here are the 4 Armenian cucumber plants that we're going to be working with, and you can see that they're doing really great. And they're sending out their little curly cues here. They're wanting to vine, they're wanting to grab onto something. So right now is a perfect time to put up a trellis for them. So that 5-foot wide trellis kind of panel we're going to be putting here will span both of these buckets here. So we'll kind of put it in between here, and then all 4 of these can climb up one trellis panel. We need to suspend another metal pipe kind of thing, similar to what is over here. Suspend it this way, and that's what we'll use to attach this panel to. I think we're going to keep it simple and use zip ties up there, and then somehow we'll have to anchor them down onto the ground so they don't like fly away and stuff like that. So that's basically the gist of it. But first we need to start by attaching that pole up there to the purlins. You climb up there, I'll hand this to you.
Now I think the easiest way to cut this is going to be with a torch so that it kind of seals itself off at the ends and doesn't fray out. So that's what we're going to try. Alright, let's roll some of that up. Just walk that
way. It's not that long, it's only 8.5 feet, so we don't have to worry too much. Maybe go 9 feet for good measure.
Yeah, it was really a little under, so yeah, maybe I'll go 9 feet just to be safe. Seems kind of stretchy too. So.
Is it? Be ready to stomp on it if you need to.
All right. Now I'm just going to attach this to the pole that we put up there with zip ties. I think that'll be plenty strong for these cucumbers. All right, we've got the first trellis up, got it attached at the top, and at the bottom, what I ended up doing is I took another metal bar, just like I have at the top. I just laid it on the ground, and then I attached the trellis material to that on the ground. It's a heavy bar, so it'll hold it down nice and tight. As these plants start to grow, I'm not worried about the bottom so much. All the pressure is going to be pulling down. So as long as it stays nice and tight from now until the time that the plants are growing on it, that's all that's really going to matter. I want you to come in a little closer so you guys can see this a little better. I know it might be kind of hard to see this thin material from a distance, and I really want you to see how this stuff is working. So now you can see this a little bit better. This has 6-inch squares. Again, this is specifically made for this purpose, for agricultural use. I actually found this on Amazon, so I'll leave a link to this in our Amazon shop so you guys can check it out. I think it's going to be great. It's super easy to put up, and I think it's going to be plenty strong for these plants. So now that these are starting to get a little bit longer, as they get long enough, like you can see this one back here is already long enough to make it to the trellis. What we'll do is we'll just start putting the first few leaves through, and then from there they'll just kind of do it on their own. So I would think within the next week or so, these are going to be attached to this. And it's going to be exciting to see how these Armenian cucumbers do here in Missouri. Like I said, we grew these every year in Arizona, but we haven't tried them in the 6 years that we've been living here in Missouri. So I'm excited to give them a try.
There's another thing that we need to trellis in the greenhouse, and honestly we needed to trellis this like a couple months ago, but we got busy and we didn't really know what we were going to do. So now we figured it out, so now we need to go back and trellis this. This is actually called Malabar spinach. It's technically not a spinach, just like the Armenian cucumbers are technically not cucumbers. But these taste a lot like spinach, especially when they are cooked, and it's a really great hot weather alternative to spinach. Spinach really does best in cooler weather, and I'd venture to say kind of cold weather. We've never had good luck growing spinach. It's just warm here all the time. I'm sure other people have mastered it, but we have not yet mastered traditional spinach, so we're growing Malabar spinach instead. Now this grows, it's been growing crazy all over the place. It's just, we've kind of balled it up on itself. So in order for us to successfully trellis this, we need to cut it way back. I'll take all of these vines with the leaves home. I'll pick off all of the leaves and I'll blanch them and then figure out whether I'm going to freeze it or can it or freeze dry it. I'm not quite sure yet. But these guys need a major haircut before we can put up a trellis, and then we can start training the new branches to go up the new trellis. So that's what we're going to get started on before we start attaching the trellis. Now this trellis is all set up too, and I just kind of went back and took what was left of the vines and just pointed them toward the trellis. Some of them were long enough for me to like stick through there and get them going again. My hope is that where we cut them off, there will be another branch that grows out. I think that's probably what's going to happen. That's generally what happens with plants. So we'll just see what happens. There's plenty of summer left, plenty of hot weather left for it to keep growing. And we'll just have to show you as things progress and see how nicely this new trellis works.
Now that the trellises are up, it's time to move on to the next thing that we need to do in the greenhouse, and that is to kind of replant some of the things that didn't do well in the garden this year.
We have time yet in our growing season to plant several things as kind of like late summer harvest. It's also time that you can start planting fall harvest types of things. So today we're going to replant our green beans, which suffered terribly in the in-ground garden, and we're going to plant some things that'll be ready kind of early fall. You know, in our previous video we talked about how our garden is just really suffering and that we're in a drought here, and we got a lot of suggestions as to why our garden wasn't doing very well. That we weren't watering enough, that we were gardening on virgin ground, just a bunch of things. We should have fertilized and all that kind of thing, and as reasons why our garden isn't doing well. And I do want to let you guys know that we've talked with a lot of people in our immediate area, and they're all experiencing the same things in their garden. Now, generally, this time of year, we're at about 85 degrees, and that's what these plants expect. That's the temperature that they really thrive at and do well at. But for, 3 weeks or a month now, we've been consistently 15 or 20 degrees hotter than that.
Right.
And
we've been almost as hot here this summer as we would be in Arizona, and which is why we're trying some of our Arizona plants here this year.
Right. So we are confident that what's going on in our garden is that it's just too hot, you guys. And
right.
We're watering enough. We're giving them plenty of water. It's just the sheer heat that is just taking a toll on all of our plants. It's like they're trying to hurry up and finish up their life cycle. They are done for the year.
Right.
They just can't take it.
Yeah. Last year we actually did plant a small garden in the same area that we're gardening this year as kind of a test, because we wanted to make sure the area that we picked here at the farm was a good area for gardening. And the garden last year that we did in that area, even though it was very small, it did really well. Except, in fact, it outperformed the garden that we had at the homestead
right.
last year. The tomatoes that we planted were amazing. The peppers were amazing. Even though this is the first time we're doing a full-size big garden here, it's not the first time we're gardening in that spot, so I'm confident that it has nothing to do with the soil. In fact, we amended the soil quite a bit over the winter, so really the plants should have done even better this summer.
Right, and they were off to a really great start.
Right.
It would have been a really stellar gardening year, but the heat came and it's been relentless.
Right.
And even though we've had a couple days break, man, we're back up in the mid to upper 90s with
right.
the humidity making it much hotter than that.
So anyway, we don't want to say all of that as a complaint. It is what it is. We got to deal with it, and the best way that we can deal with it is to plant more things here inside the greenhouse and extend the season and try to overcome that by just growing more food.
Now we're starting off with the green beans. We love contender green beans. They're a bush growing type of green bean, and we're planting 5 beans per bucket.
And we're going to plant 5 buckets, so 25 plants total. It's not going to totally make up for what we lost in the garden, but it'll be a good help. We'll definitely be able to put some more away for winter this way, and it'll be a good way to extend the season.
Next up, we are going to plant 2 buckets of carrots. I already started 2 buckets of carrots here, and they probably have a 3-week to a month head start, so I'll kind of a succession here of plantings. The 2 varieties of carrots that I love to plant are Scarlet Nantes and Danvers number 126. Now carrots, the seeds, in order for them to germinate, need to stay very wet or very moist. And so the trick to help that out is to cover them after you plant them and after they're well watered. Carrot seeds also don't need sunlight in order to germinate, so it works out well if you can cover them. I have a tendency to plant way too many carrot seeds, and then I have to do a lot of thinning. So I'm trying to pay attention and not overdo it here. I'm just gonna ruffle them just a little bit here. I'm not gonna bury them, I just kind of surface sowed them. And then I'm just gonna pat down the soil, and that will hopefully have those seeds make really good soil contact. Then I'll water them really nicely, gently, and then put like a piece of cardboard or something on top of them. Okay, on to the second bucket of carrots. I'm just gonna do everything the exact same way. Now right next door over here, I have a second planting of zucchini. We planted zucchini in here in the spring. It did really well. But then the squash bugs came and just started taking over. And so I just decided it was better to just pull those plants and start over, because I think that they're pretty much going to be done, the squash bugs, by the time these plants get producing their fruit. So far so good. They're doing great. And I wasn't quite done with what I wanted to do with zucchini for the year. So hopefully we'll get some really nice harvests before it gets too cold for them.
These next two buckets are going to be purple top turnips. Now, purple top turnips grow really well all winter long in the greenhouse in our climate. So this is just an initial planting. We're just going to do 2 buckets. We'll plant these about every 6 inches, so we can fit quite a few in here. But we'll also plant more buckets of them probably in like September. And then those will be able to, you know, help us all winter long. We really like turnips just either cut up fresh or shredded on salads. And then of course you can eat the turnip greens as well. So turnips are kind of a multi-purpose food for us here, and we really enjoy growing them.
The next thing we're going to plant is just a first fall planting of lettuce. This year we're going to try a new mix that we haven't tried before. It is from Baker Creek. It's called Cosmic Crimson Mix, and it is mostly kind of reddish colored lettuces. This mix also, there's something a little bit different about the seeds. They're actually pelleted seeds, which makes them a little bit easier to plant. You can see them a lot easier. So inside each of these little white balls is a seed. And generally these seeds are coated with some clay. That's generally how they make pelleted seeds. And so we're trying them out for the first time this year. It makes it a lot easier to see. I am going to plant these about every 6 inches. I hope we get a really great variety of plants. It always makes for a very pretty salad. Now over the winter, because we don't have a lot of other fresh things to eat, Kevin and I eat a salad almost every single day for lunch. So getting these guys started is, it's exciting. We don't eat a lot of salad over the summer because we have so many other fresh veggies to eat. So it's exciting to get this going again. Like I said, this is just our first planting. We'll plant at least a few more buckets of lettuce as we get closer to fall so that we can enjoy the lettuce all winter long. Now we plant this lettuce. This is leaf lettuce. And so we will like continuously cut the leaves off and it will grow back. We don't let them, you know, come to a head and then just harvest it all at once and take the entire plant. So this will really keep us in a continuous supply of lettuce over the fall and the winter. The last thing that we're going to be planting today are some green onions. These are called evergreen bunching onions, and I'm hoping that they do well. I actually haven't really ever had a ton of success with these, but I keep trying. I think I just don't know the timing yet, and maybe this time I have the timing right. So I'm just going to make a circle. You don't have to plant these very deep. And you can plant them about 2 inches apart. They're pretty small seeds, so you can't really see them.
Well, I feel good that we are at least attempting to recover some of the time that we lost from our garden not doing well outside. You guys, that's really the best that you can do. When you have a bad year of gardening or anything on the homestead, the best you can do is just move ahead, try to overcome it, and move on and hope that next summer or the next season is going to be better than what you just had.
We're not giving up. We're never gonna give up. We're just gonna keep trying. You guys, if you're enjoying our videos, please make sure to hit the subscribe button below. And remember that really the best way that you can help us is just to share our videos on your social media. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.